Hello Year 10. Today's lesson is looking at gravitational potential energy and kinetic energy. First thing for you to do then is to take your piece of paper, your line piece of paper, put the title of gravitational potential energy and kinetic energy. Then I would like you to describe both of those energy stores and to provide examples of them. So this was covered in your last week's remote learning lesson on energy stores. Have a look at those notes that you've done for that lesson if you're struggling. You can also use your CGP book, which is the book that you've been provided. We are looking at pages 298 and 299 in that book. So in your or on your piece of paper now, I expect to see gravitational potential energy, a description of it and an example, and the same for kinetic energy. Pause the video now and complete those tasks. Okay, so your learning objectives for today then. Remember what we have is our key high level objective on the left hand side, which is to explain how energy can be transferred from the kinetic energy store to the gravitational energy store. Before we get to that stage, we need to be able to do the 2 bullet points on the right hand side. So in order to achieve that higher level objective, you first of all need to know what the equations are for calculating kinetic energy and gravitational potential energy. So you need to be able to state them, you need to be able to say and remember how to calculate those two things. Then you're going to have a go at actually calculating the kinetic energy and gravitational potential energy of different objects in different scenarios. You also need to be able to rearrange that equation. So we're going to have a practice at doing that. Why are we learning this? So at the bottom we have a link to IAG and NASA scientists looking at energies and how they utilize their effects in order to launch rockets. Okay, now for the remainder of this lesson then you're going to continue to need your line pieces of paper. You're going to need a pen and a pencil and a ruler. You'll also need a calculator. So if you haven't got one or haven't got one to hand, pause the video now and go and make sure you've got each of those pieces of equipment. Okay, so gravitational potential energy. We'll start with this one first. From your last lesson's remote learning, looking at energy stores, gravitational potential energy, any object that is raised above the ground will have a gravitational potential energy store. So an object that you lift up in the air now, you pick up your pencil, you raise it up in the air, you will increase the gravitational potential energy store of that object. Okay, so the first equation we're going to look at then is for calculating gravitational potential energy. So we give gravitational potential energy the symbols GPE and we calculate it by doing a simple equation of mass times gravitational field strength times height. Okay, you don't need to write any of this down at the moment. I'm just going through the equation. I will give you some time in a minute. I'll ask you to pause the video and for you to construct a formula triangle using the equation and the information that I'm about to give you. Okay, so as I said, GPE is gravitational potential energy and it is given the units of capital J for joules. Mass is given the symbol of lowercase m and we're looking at units of kilograms or kg. Gravitational field strength essentially means the strength of gravity. We give it the symbol of G and it has the unit of newtons per kilogram. On Earth, it's pretty much the same wherever you are, and we're looking at roughly 9.8 newtons per kilogram. In an exam, they will give you the figure they want you to use for gravitational field strength. So not to worry too much about that. It will become clear when we go through an example. And height, finally, is given the symbol of lowercase h and the units of meters. Now, when I tell you to, I would like you to pause the video and to draw a triangle and to put that equation into the triangle. Now, we've done this before. However, you'll notice here what we have is GPE equals something times something times something, whereas normally we just have something equals something times something. So your bottom of your triangle is going to need 3 sections as opposed to just 2 sections. Okay, make sure you add the symbols, make sure you add the units as well. So don't just write GPE, make sure you're writing the units of joules. Okay, so pause the video, remember to use your ruler, draw your triangle and put that equation into that now, please. Okay, thank you. Hopefully what you have is a triangle that looks very similar to this. So you've got GPE at the top and mass times gravitational field strength times height at the bottom. Remember how we use these triangles. If you are asked to find out what one of them is, so maybe you're asked what is mass, you would cover mass with your finger and that would leave you GPE divided by gravitational field strength times height. Okay, so our example, first example for you to look at, here is our question. Gravitational field strength on Earth is 9.8 newtons per kilogram. An object has a mass of 10 kilograms and is raised by a height of 20 meters. What is the gravitational potential energy of the object? So remember, when we are working out answers to questions, the first step is to write down the equation that we are going to use. So we are asked about gravitational potential energy. We are given mass. We are given the units, the number for gravitational field strength, and we are given height. Therefore, the equation that we will use is GPE equals m times g times h. Okay, then on the line underneath that, you then put the numbers from the question to replace the symbols. So you put the numbers for mass, gravitational field strength and height. So 10 times 9.8 times 20. All of those numbers we have been given in the question. And then finally on the third line, we put our answer, 1960, and we make sure that we are including our units, which is joules. Okay, remember this is our standard for setting out our working out and for doing our calculations. On the next slide is a question for you to work through. Okay, pause the video when you get onto the next slide and you can then work your way through that question. Okay, so your turn now then. An object of mass 12 kilograms is raised by a height of 3.5 meters and we're doing this on Earth. Okay, what is the gravitational potential energy of the object? So what I want you to do here, guys, you don't have to write down the question on the piece of paper that you've got in front of you that you've been using so far. Okay, all I would like you to do is to put the question 1 and to just write down your 3-line answer. So remember, the first line, like we've just seen, is the equation that you're using. The second line, you put the numbers in from the question. And the third line, you put your answer with your units. Now you'll notice I haven't given you the number for gravitational field strength. However, the question gives you enough information in order to work out what that will be based on my previous example.